Hello, it's great to see you. I'm Jenny Kirk, welcoming you up here to Weir Yard, where today we're going to be taking a good close look at the latest locomotive release from Rapido Trains UK. It's the 4400 Prairie tank that they had announced a while ago, and I must admit that I thought that this was an unusual choice to make a ready-to-run model of. Why might I say that? Well, they were only an 11-strong class and were eclipsed in numbers by the later 4500 and 4575 classes of small Prairie tanks. But they were the genesis of that design and were really great at their job, and really it was because of their pioneering work on some of the rural branch lines that the designs were modified to make the later 4500 class. So it's Rapido that's taken this on, and in some ways it's quite nice to see that rather than perhaps take the easy approach of going head to head with a pre-existing model of the far more numerous classes, they've chosen to plug that gap in the ready-to-run offerings, and it means we've now got all three of the small Prairie classes available ready to run. But this is, of course, a new tooled model from the ground up, and that does mean that Rapido are able to incorporate a lot of modern developments that really does hopefully make this something special. We've got Firebox flicker as standard on all models, and this actually works on DC really quite well as on DCC, where it opens up two different auxiliary functions to get the yellow and the red lights up and running, which can give some great effects as to whether the engine is working hard with quite a draw on the fire, or whether it's just simmering away. And you can model this actually by turning on and off the yellow light, which really makes the fire look a lot hotter, like it's got a really good draft of air going through it. We've also got a lot of die cast in the construction of this model, and one of the things that struck me that you'll see as we go into this video is just how heavy it is compared with other offerings on the market. In some respects it's almost a little bit humorous that some manufacturers cite die cast construction as if it's some kind of a premium feature that commands a much higher price, and oh, isn't this great? But actually this is the unsung design of actually a lot of locomotives coming through just like this 4400 class, where there's a huge amount of die cast material in this, and it not just adds weight which helps with adhesion, but I do think, and I've said this time and time again, that metal painted to look like painted metal looks a lot more like painted metal than plastic painted to look like metal, and it really does enhance far more than just tractive weight, and I think the model looks a lot better for that. But it's up to you to make your opinion based on what you see in this video, and if you don't really like the sound of me chattering away, mute the video, just look at the pictures and make up your own decision on this model. But if you want to hear what I have to say about this, well, come with me and we'll take a good close look. And of course, as always, down below in the description box we've got an affiliate link to TMC, the Model Centre, where all versions of the Rapido 4400 class Prairie tanks are available to buy at 15% off the RRP, and that does bring them down to quite a reasonable price. Also, as we go through, do hit that like button, consider sharing this video to social media, and subscribe to the channel if you've not already done so. Also, don't forget to check out the link to our merch store down below. We've also got links to pick up your Monday Club pin badges. These are a great way of showing your support for the channel, as well as accessing some exclusive in-person shopping discounts with a host of different retailers, with full details available on the website. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. Come with me and let's take a good close look and see what Rapido Trains UK have cooked up for us with this 4400 class small Prairie tank. Is this a hit or is it a miss? Is all that extra die cast weight going to make this rise above the competition or sink like a Led Zeppelin? Come with me, let's find out. Today's video comes in association with Trainomatic, makers of DCC decoders and accessories that are designed by enthusiasts for enthusiasts. Find the full range available to order now at tramfabriek.co.uk. We're proud to be supported by TMC, the Model Centre, your first choice for new and used. Pre-order all forthcoming models with confidence, or check out the extensive listings of second-hand. Each model is checked by experts in the field to make sure you're getting the very best. With new models uploaded daily, there's always something new to find. You can also specify from their value weathering and renumbering service right through to bespoke graffiti to get exactly the model that you want. Get something special today by browsing at themodelcentre.com. Another week, another Rapido trains release. They're really coming thick and fast. And today it's the turn of the GWR 4400 class, the very first of the small Prairie tanks. Now these set the stage for a number of other classes that followed on, arguably very successful type of locomotive. The Prairie wheelbase, the 262, meant that these were particularly good at working. Branch lines didn't need to be turned at either end of the line, and they ran equally as well forwards as in reverse. Backwards and forwards, forwards and backwards. Now these are the perfect accompaniment to go with the B-set coaches that Rapido released some months back, and it's really nice to see that they've chosen a class of locomotives that's never been offered in ready-to-run form before. Now the 4400 class set the stage for the later 4500 and 4575 locomotives, which altogether the three classes were referred to as the small Prairies, as their driving wheels were under 5 foot in diameter. Of course, there's a number of classes which have been offered ready to run by various manufacturers that have wheels larger than 5 foot, and these are collectively known as the large Prairies. It's the standard Rapido Trains box, and they've very kindly sent over to the channel so we can have a good close look at this particular example, catalogue number 951003, and this is in the GWR green with the shirt button roundel as number 4402, and this is the DCC ready version. And all of the locomotives come pre-fitted with a speaker. I will be checking that when I do the DCC fit, and they do need a Next 18 decoder, and I will be showing you how to do the full DCC fit probably towards the final third of the video. Now we've got the owner's manual here as ever, and this gives us some information on the prototypes. Designed by George Jackson Churchwood, he settled on the Prairie or 262 wheel arrangement for a medium-sized mainline tank engine in 1903, and this was a follow-on from the original prototype numbered as number 99, the idea being that a smaller version would be suitable for branch lines. So he built number 115 in 1904, and it was deemed a success. 10 more followed in 1905 and 1906, and these were what became the 11 members of the 4400 class. They were a little bit hampered, quite small diameter driving wheels at 4 foot 1.5 inch, and from 1906 newer locomotives were built with 4 foot 7.5 inch diameter driving wheels, and these became the 4500 class. Despite being a very small class, these locomotives found work in different parts of the Great Western Network, including Birmingham, South Wales, but were most well known for their performances in Devon and Cornwall. And for a very small class of locomotives, they lasted quite well over 40 years. All members made it to BR ownership, although they did become fairly early culls. Now we've also got some information on additional detailing parts that come in the packet. It's nice to see we see exactly where these fit, although as always these are an either or fitment with the couplings in the NEM pockets. And then we've also got some information on fitting a DCC decoder. We'll go through this, and the factory fitted sound version. We've also got the DCC functions list in here as well. And as I said before, all versions of the locomotive released come with a factory fitted speaker, so if you do want to fit aftermarket sound, then it's just simply a case of sourcing the Next 18 sound decoder with the sound profile of your choice. It's also nice to see that we get some etched metal number plates in here. This was, of course, a feature of pretty much all GWR locomotives. Even the diesels got these cast metal number plates. It was very much a GWR thing that was perpetuated through into BR days, and these are included. If you want to add these to your model, use the printed versions on the model as your guide for exactly where they go. They will cover that up perfectly. But don't use super glue, believe me, it will make a mess. You will ruin your model. You'll probably get a white bloom around it. Instead, something like PVA is absolutely perfect, and it does mean that should you get them in the wrong position, it's possible to remove them and reposition. Inside the packaging, just get the locomotive out. In terms of its looks, this is very reminiscent of the later 4500 class, a model that has been on the market since the early days of Lima, actually, and then a new tooled version came from another manufacturer. So it's definitely something that will already be out there in a lot of layouts, but the 4400 has never been offered. With its smaller wheel diameters, it is something that hopefully will stand out next to the 4500 class and provide some welcome variety to your model fleet. Now, Rapido have tooled up an awful lot of detail differences on these, including different chimneys and also internal and external steam pipes and a whole host of other bits and pieces, which mean that they can replicate all members of the class throughout all periods of their existence. Now, what initially strikes me is just how heavy this locomotive is. It does feel like an awful lot of die-cast metal has gone into its construction. And we've got the fully straight running plate there, just the joggle at the front as per the prototype. And actually, I'm going to compare this is actually a Bachmann 4575 class. So similar to the 4500 class, except it's got the angle on the front water tanks is probably the best comparison. And actually, just feeling the weight in these, this is substantially heavier than the older Bachmann model, and you can also see there instantly the very, very visible difference between the diameter on the wheels. Now that presumably made the 4400 class a lot more powerful in terms of starting power, would have made them pretty good on things like coal trains and gradients. It would have given them a lot of torque, but it would have compromised their top speed, and as a result on passenger trains probably made them much less efficient on water and coal. And it's one of the reasons that later builds had that larger diameter wheel, and it's nice to see that Rapido have properly captured that smaller diameter of those wheels. We've got the water tanks there with the completely flat top, and what is also interesting is one of the other detail differences that Rapido have tooled up for is different patterns of rivets. But certainly the rivet detail on this is really quite crisp and sharp. I'm not sure actually, I think that is plastic moulding, but with all the weight that's in this model, it's actually difficult to tell what is metal and what is made of plastic. They've done a really great job on masking the different construction materials, although I can see there's a slightly more shine to the boiler, and I think that looks like that could well be die-cast metal. Certainly they found somewhere to put a lot of weight into this model. The front face of the locomotive is captured really, really well. We've got the separately fitted smokebox dart. I would assume that it's a very, very slender metal fitting, but there's quite a lot of flex there. There's no sign of flimsiness, certainly when you get fine-turned metal parts that come down to scale thickness. They can get quite brittle in metal, but I don't see any evidence of that with that, which is great to see. These stays at the front, which are part of the bracing for that rather quite elongated front buffer beam, these feel quite strong, and they are sat perfectly into this die-cast metal running plate quite well. There's no air gaps and no sign of them coming adrift, which is really great to see. On the front buffer beam, we've got a really quite pleasing red finish on this, and choice of paint colours is really vitally important in model form, and that red really does fit the bill perfectly on this. We've got crisp and sharp rivets, and then with the buffers too, we've got separately fitted sprung loaded buffers with turned metal heads, and these do seem quite robust. There's no real sign of looseness that I can find on those. We've got the printing for the number there, 4402, with the black drop shadowing, really crisp and sharp, and that really does look quite good. Looking back along the die-cast running plate, there's actually a lot of rivet detail in there, again crisp and sharp, and the choice of the black really does work well with the metal. We've got the smokebox saddle underneath there. I think this is the one with the internal steam pipes, the exhaust pipes from the cylinders up into the smokebox. And it does make for a very kind of open and spacious running plate at the front. Comparing that to the 4575 class, you can see there the external steam pipes, again, which is something which, in accordance with the paperwork that comes with this model, Rapido have actually tooled up both versions, but I really do like the clean lines of this internal one. There's a lot of extra detail here, including this separately fitted gusset. It looks to be the cradle on which the boiler sits, and that is actually a really nice piece. It's perfectly fitted in, there's no panel gaps through there, and we've got additional pipe work visible and some extra detailing parts. I think that could well be the lubricator in there with these brass coloured pipes picked out next to it. Really, really well done. And looking to the other side, this isn't just a duplicate, we've got different detailing there. And actually we see more of this boiler cradle part separately fitted. It's actually got some holes cut through it. I guess on the prototype this was part of weight saving, and it does look really, really good. Again, we've got more, I'm going to say that's lubricators. I'm not 100% certain, but actually there's also pipe work just underneath this part on the cradle, with each individual pipe picked out in the kind of brass. It's subtle detail and finish like that which really shows a great level of attention to detail. There's a full gap underneath the boiler, you can see right through, and I can't see any motion in there. It's really actually quite difficult to see. I don't think there is any representation of motion. There's just sort of a flat black panel in there, but it's not something that's noticeable from normal viewing angles. The cylinders too, these look to be die-cast metal, and that makes them very robust. And again, paint on metal is something which looks so much more like painted metal than plastic painted to look like metal.
You don't say.
And you can really see that difference here with the cylinders. The black paint really does look great on there. Moving further forward, we've got some metal steps. These are quite springy but strong. No sign of them coming free. That was a big bugbear with the 4500 class and 4575, was that I felt like I was constantly gluing back on some of these steps, but so far these do feel quite robust. Those at the back as well, really quite fine metal and quite robust, but there's enough spring that these don't look like they're at risk of being broken off. We've got sand boxes and pipes down here underneath, and some injector detail, and then behind that the handbrake mechanism too. This is all factory fitted. Looking across the underside, I can see that we've got wiper style pickups playing on the back of all 6 of the driving wheels. I'm just looking to the ponies, and there doesn't appear to be any kind of electrical pickup on either of these. We've got correctly a different design for the front, which has this really quite slender design. That really is as true to scale as I've seen on a lot of models, and I really like this sprung loaded centre mechanism that allows for some vertical travel on these, which hopefully means that the locomotive won't get hung up on gradient changes on your layout, but also it stops this front bogie from having far too much sideways play and getting caught up in things. Spring detail is all modelled here on the keeper plate, and we appear to have drive to the rearmost axle, and there is a small hole there should you ever need to lubricate the drive inside. Just a tiny drip of sewing machine style oil into there will be more than enough. The rear pony is a completely different design, but again we've got that central sprung mechanism, which again has a really nice positive springing action, but not so strong as to lift the driving wheels on the locomotive. I can see here at the back that we've got some holes drilled through. I suspect that's where the speaker is mounted. Straight from the factory you can see that the slimline tension locks come factory fitted, mounted in the pony truck mounted pockets, and these are quite simple to pull out, although actually quite firmly in, but you can pull them out should you need to change these, and they do go in quite well. We've got the guard irons. These feel, again, very, very robust, but there's a spring to them, which just adds to the protection from damage. Looking to the back bunker, again, we've got that characteristic shape with almost like eyebrows on the windows, with these protective bars which would have protected everything from coal just getting bashed into the glass. Now, I'm just going to go over here for my pair of tweezers. I can see one of the protective bars. It just shows actually these are all separate pieces, but one of the bars has come adrift. I'm just going to see how easy. Yeah, that just pushes in there. I don't know if it's meant to be glued, but there just seems to be an absence of glue on that final bar. All of the others do seem quite robust. It's not the be-all and end-all. I would say if you have to fix something like that, again, the tiniest dab of something like PVA will be more than enough. Easily wipe off any excess and it won't mar the finish of your model. We've got the vacuum standard on the back here, which is factory fitted, and I do like the red on the upright pipe, and then the flexible pipe is picked out in black. That really does look superb. And again, sprung buffers on the back. There is no front vacuum pipe, but I'm just looking to the detail bag. We do have that as a separately fitted part, but I suspect the pipe that goes underneath the buffer beam may just interfere with that front coupling, so you just have to ask yourself which direction you want to go with that. The windows on the cab really do capture the characteristic of these locomotives well. We've also got this protective plate at the back which doubles as a little bit of a greedy board to increase the coal capacity, and I think because there may well be a speaker underneath here, we do have a factory fitted coal load. I do love the way it slopes down towards the front characteristically, as the real coal would, as it being shoveled out by the firemen, it would tend to slump to the back. That is a really nice touch. Moulded on detail for the access hatch out into the bunker, and then we've got separately fitted metal parts for the steps and the lamp irons, and even more fine rivet detail, and finally these metal handrails painted to match the body colour. These are all factory fitted and really quite robust. These on the side, the handrails for getting in and out the cab, have got the correct circular pattern knobs top and bottom. It's difficult to tell, are these plastic or metal, but they do seem to be quite robust. Looking to the top of the cab roof, we've got the access hatch modelled in the open position. It's not a sliding part, but actually I think a lot of the time these would have run with it open for the ventilation. Just going to see, do we have a removable cab roof for fitting a crew? Doesn't appear to be, but we'll see how easily accessible the cab internals are when we get to doing the DCC fit. Inside the cab we've got fully modelled backhead detail, and this is something that I wouldn't expect anything less from Rapido. Certainly this is one of the areas that their attention to detail is second to none. In fact, the entire cab interior looks to be very well detailed. It's just a shame we can't quite see it in the gloom. Going to have to shine a very bright light in. And then we've got these sliding panels on the side. Again, they don't seem to slide, but this would have been just to provide a degree of crew protection to slide these back, but obviously for looking out, there's no window in them, so they'd have to be movable on the prototype. The Firebox top is correctly represented here. It's a very classic GWR boiler design with the big bulbous firebox. We've got the washout plugs on the side, and again this all feels like it's metal. And then we've got the separately fitted whistles. These two feel like a metal part. They're certainly very robust and really well realised with separately picked out colours on them. And then the cranked pipes into the front of the cab, and these are well affixed with no risk of them coming adrift. The top of the tanks have these lifting eyes. These sit flat to the tank tops. I'm just going to go back for my tweezers, and I'm just quite curious. These separate parts, it's difficult to tell. They look like they should just flip up. They don't appear to, but actually I have to say they are so fine that if they are part of the moulding, that is superbly done. The bonnet around the safety valves is actually painted in green rather than picked out in the brass colour. Again, this is probably something that was just because when the sun catches a really highly polished safety valve bonnet, it can actually dazzle the crew. So maybe that's one of the reasons that these were painted. Also a wartime economy, perhaps. It meant it didn't need cleaning so much. We've got an awful lot more separately fitted detail. I do like these tank fillers at the front. These look to be a separately fitted part. They are quite robustly fitted. And really, look at the tie-down mechanism. That is robust. Although, actually, it feels like plastic. I'd be very careful around them. They look like they could easily get broken. So do be quite careful. The funnel on these is tapered. Again, quite well affixed. We do seem to have some lines on these. According to the blurb, both varieties of chimney are able to be reproduced by Rapido. So depending on which version you've got, depends on which of those you have. The printing on the side, the 4402 plate, is actually really well realised. If only for the fact that it was flat to the side, these are perfectly acceptable without ever needing to affix the etched ones that they give you. And then we've got the C above, really quite crisp. Moving further along, the GWR shirt button logo is really crisply realised. It is a really quite simple yet effective crest on the side here. Introduced, I'm guessing in part because it was a single transfer that could be slapped on there, rather than having to do all the separate lettering spelling out Great Western. And looking to the wheels, these are the correct pattern. They do look quite substantial pieces, blacked out, and really do look great. We've got the brake blocks. These line up with the treads perfectly, again factory fitted. And then we've got the connecting rods. These are metal with the oil boxes correctly pointing upwards. There's no fluting on these, but the actual connecting rod is fluted. And again, substantial metal part. All of this is metal. And then we've got this characteristic GWR curved perch bracket, really greatly done, and this fits into the cross slide. Looks absolutely great. Everything about this model is perfect and where it needs to be, and the finish really is superb. I think because there's a lot of metal parts on here, it really does reflect in this really amazing paint finish. Additional support is provided by...
This is Clark Railworks, and this is what we do. You'll know us from Ellis Clark Trains, and you'll get the same friendly expertise with us too. We've got a huge range of pre-owned model railways from all your favourite manufacturers, and maybe some you hadn't heard of before. It's the place to come for quality. We don't stock substandard models, and everything we sell is fully tested and photographed by model railway experts. No matter whether you model double-O gauge, N, HO or more, we have sought after models from all around the world with new listings added every weekday. Check out what's available now at clarkrailworks.com and don't miss out on your latest logo.
When it comes to running on DC, the model performs great out of the box in both directions. What's interesting is that we do have a Firebox flicker in there, and this actually works really well down to quite a low voltage, and it doesn't seem to increase or decrease in brightness. Once it's on, it stays at roughly the same brightness, which is certainly a great feature for those who wish to remain with DC. So we come now to the DCC fitting portion of the video, and luckily in the manual we do have a description of what screws we need to undo, but I will explore this. I know on previous Rapido releases the instructions have missed out steps, so we're going to explore this together, and I'm going to be fitting a Trainomatic Next 18 decoder, and those are available through Tramfabriek, the UK stockists, who we've got a link down below to help you out. So first up, I'm going to very carefully transfer the locomotive into a DCC Concepts locomotive servicing cradle just to protect the fine detail. And then we've got 5 screws. Now one thing I will say, you can just see there that when I've undone that screw, it's taken some of the black paint off. This is one of the downsides of painted die-cast metal, is that the paint can be prone to kind of chipping off. Luckily, this is not an area that's going to be seen, but you can see that that has also done the same. We've also got 2 more here, so we're going to very careful. These are very well torqued up, it must be said. When we put it back together, we're going to just take it quite easy. There's no need to go all Wayne's World air hammer on it and really tighten that right up to within an inch of its life. And then we've got the 5th screw, and this front pony design actually does lend itself perfectly to this. We don't need to remove a pony truck. Now be careful, I can feel these screws have been torqued up quite a lot, so they just may be easy to strip the head if you're not sympathetic. I'm just going to put those screws down there out of the way, and this should now release the full chassis from the body, and it does. And actually that is really quite an easy removal, and you can see there as well we've got full access to the inside of the cab too, so if you want to add a crew, this is the moment to add them in. And actually look, you can see inside the cab we've got extra detail that would just be almost impossible to see if we didn't have the body off. Looking inside here, there's a lot of metal, and that seems to be an insert into the outer plastic for the tanks, and I'm quite intrigued as well that these support stays actually stay put, so just be careful that you don't catch them, because that would be where they're at their most vulnerable. This also gives us an extra look into some of the internal detail parts. You can see there we've got I think this would be the drain cock mechanism, and that is actually separately fitted metal parts. Really quite subtle. You can't easily see that when the body's on, and this cradle as well for the boiler stays put with the chassis. Really lovely part there, so well finished, and it's painted all the way in. We've got this brass flywheel on the end of the motor and gear chain, and you can see as well in the cab we've got the reverser and the handbrake all in there and separately fitted. The firebox flickers down there, it looks to be 2 separate LEDs, and then we've got our Next 18 blanking plate. Now the plug is towards the front of the locomotive, so we're just going to lever that up carefully from the back, put that to one side, and then bring in the Trainomatic Next 18 decoder, line it up and just push that into place, make sure that all is well. I do like as well that if you do need to access the motor for anything, there's just 2 screws here, and the wiring actually has a plug. It makes life so much easier. Should also point out we've got the factory fitted speaker in its enclosure that hides away up inside the bunker and actually makes use not just of those holes underneath, but the open coal hole at the front to allow the sound to escape quite well. Once we've got that in place, it's just simply a case of reversing the process. And actually looking here, I would say that there's enough room for a small stay alive quite readily should the need arise. There is in fact actually some cutouts here, that's for the screws, but there's some cutouts at the back here that look almost perfect for something like those small stay alive type assemblies where you have the capacitors on wires. So there's definitely a lot of options if you want to go down the stay alive route. Now I'm just going to try and get that back down and in. I'm going to bring the cradle back into play just to protect things, and then it's simply a case of reversing the process. Now the single screw that looks longer than the others, this is the one that goes back here at the front. Again, there's no point in over tightening these. All you will do is cause damage, strip threads, strip heads. So let's just make sure that that's picking up the thread properly. That doesn't feel like it wants to go. I'm going to move that to the back. Sometimes that's the best way to go. If the screw doesn't feel like it's going in, maybe it looks similar but is different to some of the others. So again, carefully line that up and screw that in. Let's not over torque it. And yes, actually they are subtly different. These have got a countersunk head for the center. Again, just turn until you feel the resistance. Snug it in, but not too much. And there we go. That does look like, yes, that's drawn the body down perfectly. And just in case, let's just carefully push those two front stays into place. And there you have a DCC fitted locomotive. Out of the box, the decoder will be set to ID3. I'm going to actually change it to 4402. So one of the beauties of GWR locomotives is the full number is perfect for a DCC address. So I'm going to take this to the programming track, do that, and then it's off to the layout to put it through its paces. Running on DCC, the model performed perfectly well straight out of the DCC fitment. The Firebox flicker is available on F3 and F4 and natively on the Trainomatic decoder, with each controlling one of the red or yellow LED functions. On the Torture test track, it did struggle a little bit, feeling like it was getting hung up on some of the twists where it would start to spin its wheels or lose electrical continuity. As soon as it moved to the main track, though, it was a completely different story, with the locomotive pulling a long test train with comparative ease. It didn't have any issues with the gradients or curves there and got through all of the point work perfectly fine, and it does feel like this is a locomotive which, whilst requiring some particularly better laid track than I've got on the Torture test track, it does reward those that have big layouts to be able to let it stretch its legs, and with all of that die-cast metal in there, it does seem to be able to handle quite a long load. Price point for this locomotive comes in at an RRP of $172.95 for DCC ready and $284.95 for the factory fitted sound option. At the affiliate link at TMC, the Model Centre, down below in the description box, you'll find them at 15% discount, and that makes the DCC ready version around £146.99. Rapido are producing a number of different models to represent liveries and detail differences throughout these locomotives' lives, which range from Great Western Green through GWR Green with the shirt button roundel as seen in this review, GWR Wartime Green, British Railways Serif Green, British Railways Sans Serif lined black, and BR Early Crest lined black and plain black, so all different livery options are covered in this release. So we turn now to the scores. First up is build quality, and whilst by and large this is a really well put together model with some very thoughtful use of materials to get the best finish, There were a couple of detailed parts which were loose as was out of the box. I have been able to fit these back in with some PVA, but it is something that I am pointing out, and I do review the models as they come, so it's going to get a 9.7. On running quality, the model did struggle a bit on the torture test track. It does feel like it is slightly compromised with not having any pickups on the ponies, and whilst they do have a good deal of vertical movement, the locomotive did still manage to get stuck on some of the more severe gradient changes on that tortured test track, and it did feel like a little bit of the Achilles heel if you have very twisty track. But that is poor track laying done on purpose on the torture test track, but one which of course you're not going to have that on your layout, are you? On the main line though, it was a completely different story, with the locomotive performing really well. That extra weight really comes into its own, and whilst it is only picking up from the 6 driving axles, I didn't find the same level of issues as I had on the torture test track, and overall I'm going to give this an 8.9. On DCC Fitting and Innovation, it's really great to see that Rapido have sorted out issues that have plagued some of their earlier models insofar as the instructions not matching the reality of the models, with things like secret screws that aren't alluded to that need to be undone, or other body parts that do struggle to come off to be able to do the DCC fitting. On this model, it feels like they've taken on board all the criticism and hooked everything up, and there really isn't anything to fault. The screws that are shown in the manual are the screws to undo, and the body comes off without any great issue, and there's no danger of damaging detail. Once off, it's really easy to fit crews, fit stay-alives, and there is plenty of space for a decoder in that next 18 socket. With the factory-fitted speaker, there really is nothing to fault, and as an added bonus you get that 2-colour Firebox LED, and it really does give a package that deserves 10 out of 10. On accuracy and quality of finish, again, both of these areas, this model scores really well. I really like the thoughtful use of die-cast metal, not just to give that adhesive weight that really does make this model ooze quality, but also to really enhance the paint finish. Nothing says painted metal more than, well, real painted metal, and there's definitely a lot of that in this model, and the finish is much improved for that. There's thoughtful colour choices in terms of the precise shades of the colours, and the detail pick out is second to none. All in all, there's nothing that I can fault, and I'm going to give this a 10 out of 10 in this category. On value for money, this model comes in at $172.95 RRP, which might seem just a little bit on the expensive side, but you do get a lot of quality model for that money. At the link that we've got down below, which is an affiliate link, you can get 15% off that from TMC, the Model Centre, which does bring this down into a really quite reasonable price. And what you're getting is a really lovely locomotive of a prototype which I must admit I never thought anybody would bring to the ready-to-run market when you compare the 11 members of this class to the far more numerous 4500 and 4575 class locomotives. Overall, it is a reasonable price for an exceptional model, and I'm going to give this 8.2, which gives us a final score of 46.8. It really is a great release from Rapido, and certainly puts the other competitors' models of the 4500 on notice that there's definitely a new challenger in the small Prairie category.
Here comes a new challenger!
So there you have it, the all-new 4400 class from Rapido Trains. As always, as we've gone through this video, if you really do like what you see and you want to pick up either the livery that you saw in the video or any of the other livery examples that Rapido are doing, we've got an affiliate link to help you out down in the description that takes you to TMC, the Model Centre, for a great 15% off discount. My personal opinions on this, I thought this was a really good weighty model. On the main tracks of Weir Yard, it performed really well. A lot of these smaller tank locomotives can struggle with longer loads, really just not quite picking up the grip that they need. But on the main layout, this really did work well with no signs of slipping. Where it had a little bit of an Achilles heel was on the torture test track, and for those who don't know, the torture test track is deliberately laid with some quite questionable track. There's some radius 1 curves on there, there's some twisted track. What do I mean by that? Well, I mean that the track itself is twisted slightly to really give the most unfavourable purchase for a locomotive to test both traction and also electrical pickup, and I found that the locomotive did sometimes, on the most extreme twists and gradient changes, got kind of hung up between its front and rear pony trucks, but nothing too major. And it has to be said, the caveat on all this is that the track really is dire for this purpose, to really put models to the test. So the fact that it ran on the main layout absolutely fine for me is really quite a good sign. It only picks up from the 6 driving wheels, and I did feel that it would benefit either from a small stay alive on DCC, or indeed if Rapido would consider perhaps fitting pickups of some description to those ponies, would really help it out. But it was only a minor gripe, and certainly it's something I think most people probably wouldn't experience problems with it, because it did work quite well with the wiper pickups being in full contact with the wheels out of the box, didn't need to adjust anything. The mechanism really is quite nice and smooth, whilst manufacturers always recommend a running in period of about 20 to 30 minutes in each direction. Actually, out the box it really didn't feel like it needed that and was silky smooth. DCC Fitting for me as well. This is something that I've had a few issues with earlier Rapido releases. It sometimes feels like DCC Fitting's almost an afterthought to the design of the models, but with this actually it really is simple to get the body off. There's plenty of space in there, and I thought that it was a refreshing, easy DCC fit with plenty of room as well. If you wanted to fit a stay alive or any other such gubbins, we've got the Firebox flicker as standard, and I really do like the fact that it's got the factory fitted speaker in the bunker, so if you want to go down your own sound fitting route, it really is quite easy. All in all, it gets a good thumbs up from me, but as always, I'd love to hear what you guys have to think about it. Do leave a comment down below, and it's always great to hear from you. Maybe you know a bit more about these small Prairie tanks than the likes of my basic online research turned up, or maybe it's something that you've got on your own layout and you want to share your experiences. Do let us know down below. It's a great way of sharing your intellect and knowledge with your fellow enthusiasts. Until next time, please like, share and subscribe, and you can also check us out over on Patreon and help support the channel to keep making the videos that you want to see. And until next time, this is me, Kirk, saying take great care. Bye for now. Today's video comes in association with Trainomatic, makers of DCC decoders and accessories that are designed by enthusiasts for enthusiasts. Find the full range available to order now at tramfabriek.co.uk. Additional support is provided by...
This is Clark Railworks, and this is what we do. You'll know us from Ellis Clark Trains, and you'll get the same friendly expertise with us too. We've got a huge range of pre-owned model railways from all your favourite manufacturers, and maybe some you hadn't heard of before. It's the place to come for quality. We don't stock substandard models, and everything we sell is fully tested and photographed by model railway experts. No matter whether you model OO gauge, N, HO or more, we have sought after models from all around the world with new listings added every weekday. Check out what's available now at clarkrailworks.com, and don't miss out on your latest loco.
We're proud to be supported by TMC, the Model Centre, your first choice for new and used. Pre-order all forthcoming models with confidence, or check out the extensive listings of second-hand. Each model is checked by experts in the field to make sure you're getting the very best. With new models uploaded daily, there's always something new to find. You can also specify from their value weathering and renumbering service right through to bespoke graffiti to get exactly the model that you want. Get something special today by browsing at themodelcentre.com. I'd like to thank everybody over on Patreon, and an extra special huge thanks goes out to our Patreon heroes. Without you guys over on Patreon, we really wouldn't be able to keep making the video content that you see on this channel. And don't forget that you can also head on over to patreon.com/Jennifer Kirk and check out the different tiers of rewards. Thank you so much. You are absolute legends.